There are big reasons why Bridgerton Season 4 sets up Sophie's first meeting with Benedict at the Masquerade Ball, and we need to talk about them. Because what you're seeing isn't just pretty costumes and fancy masks. These masquerade balls were the most controversial events of the Regency era, and there's a reason a servant could sneak into them. But what exactly happened at these masked gatherings that made them so dangerous? You'll want to know as we're about to expose the scandalous truth hiding behind every single costume. Masquerade balls were extremely popular during the Regency era, but they had a dangerous reputation for scandalous behavior and romantic encounters. The costumes people wore at these parties were based on historical, mythological, or fictional figures, and attendees really embraced the opportunity. It was normal to dress as the opposite gender and experiment with gender roles. Many chose costumes based on stories of distant lands, a cultural interest called Orientalism, which is now recognized as deeply problematic. However, the costumes weren't the controversial part. What happened while wearing them was, which we will unravel soon. Although Bridgerton is not historically accurate, it draws on real historical facts and creatively interprets them to tell the story. And we can see so much about the story and the characters just from their costumes alone, starting with Eloise, who is dressed as the feminist Joan of Arc. This choice makes complete sense for Eloise's character, who has always rejected traditional feminine roles and fought against societal expectations. Joan of Arc was a warrior who defied gender norms and led armies into battle, making her the perfect historical figure for Eloise to embody at a masquerade where you could become anyone you wanted. The Mondrics are dressed as Antony and Cleopatra, and their costumes draw inspiration from the 1963 film and historical iconography. Cleopatra was known for her intelligence, political power, and seductive charm, while Antony was a Roman general who gave up everything for love. This costume choice speaks volumes about their relationship dynamic and how they see themselves as a power couple willing to defy the world for each other. However, these elaborate costumes hint at something much bigger about what masquerade balls really meant, which we will get to soon. Penelope is dressed as the notorious Anne Bonny, one of the few female recorded pirates whose life is clouded in mystery, which fits perfectly for Lady Whistledown's identity. Anne Bonny was an Irish pirate who disguised herself as a man to sail the seas and lived by her own rules, completely outside of society's control. And Bonny is also rumored to have been Irish, which is a really nice nod to Nicola's own background. This costume choice is brilliant because it reflects Penelope's double life as someone who appears to follow the rules while secretly operating outside of them, gathering secrets and wielding power from the shadows. But here's where things get interesting. The Queen wears no mask, and this was actually a power move, with a historical record to back it up. There are stories of elite families hosting masquerades while wearing no masks themselves, a way to remind people of the power dynamic at play. While everyone else hid their identity, the most powerful people in the room made sure you knew exactly who they were. It was a calculated display of dominance, showing that they didn't need to hide because they were untouchable. The Queen's choice to remain unmasked sends a clear message that she's above the games everyone else is playing. Brimsley is wearing a simple black mask, which is actually closer to the one most people wore to these events. The most common masks were plain black, meant to conceal your identity and be completely reusable for future masquerades. These simple masks were the most effective because they didn't draw attention to people. The goal wasn't to look fancy. The goal was to disappear into the crowd and become completely anonymous. And that anonymity is what made these events so dangerous. And we have this season's heroine, Sophie, whose costume is meant to remind us of the fairy tale of Cinderella. And, as lovers of the book series already know, this season is based around a Cinderella love story. But the reason this Cinderella story can even happen has everything to do with the shocking history of masquerade balls and what they allowed people to do. Masquerade balls originated in Renaissance Italy, especially Venice, where masked festivities were central to carnival celebrations as early as the 15th century. Masks allowed people to hide their identity, temporarily erasing class, gender, and social rank. Nobles and commoners could mingle freely, something impossible in normal society. By the 17th and 18th centuries, masquerades spread across Europe, including France and England. England embraced them enthusiastically, especially among the aristocracy. By the mid-17th century, masquerade balls were fashionable in London high society. Public masquerades were held at venues like Vauxhall Gardens and Ranelagh Gardens. During the Regency era, masquerades took place in private aristocratic homes, at exclusive assemblies, and occasionally as ticketed public events. They became a symbol of luxury, mystery, and indulgence. However, they also became symbols of something else entirely. Religious leaders and moralists condemned masquerades as immoral and dangerous. Critics believed anonymity encouraged sexual impropriety, gambling, and deception. Satirical cartoons of the time portrayed masquerades as places of corruption and vice. Some respectable families forbade their daughters from attending them because of what happened when identities were hidden. The controversy wasn't exaggerated. These events really were that scandalous. Masquerade balls offered things ordinary balls did not. First, they provided social freedom. Masks allowed people to speak, flirt, and dance without social consequences. Young women could interact with men more freely. Scandalous conversations could happen without immediate reputational damage. Second, they created romantic intrigue. Anonymous encounters fueled romance, temptation, and fantasy. Third, they offered an escape from rigid etiquette. Strict rules governed Regency society. Masquerades were a temporary suspension of decorum, where wit replaced titles and confidence replaced lineage. The masks created an atmosphere where people could say things they'd never dare say in daylight. Flirtations that would ruin a reputation at a standard ball were perfectly acceptable behind a mask. Married women could dance with men who weren't their husbands without causing scandal. Young ladies could engage in bold conversation that would have their mothers fainting in horror at any other event. The anonymity was intoxicating and dangerous in equal measure. And here's the part that makes everything click into place. Based on the historical record, there's a specific reason why Benedict and Sophie are meeting at a masquerade ball. It allows anonymity and flirtation without consequences. It's the reason a member of the Bridgerton family could fall in love with a servant, and it's the reason the servant could be there in the first place, due to the anonymity masquerade balls afforded. In normal Regency society, this love story would be impossible. A Bridgerton could never dance with a servant could never attend an aristocratic ball, but at a masquerade, with masks concealing identity and costumes hiding class, the impossible became possible. The masks didn't just hide faces, they erased the entire social structure. This is why masquerades were so controversial and why families tried to keep their daughters away. Because when class boundaries disappeared, anything could happen. A duke's daughter could fall in love with a poor artist. A married woman could have an affair without being recognized. A servant could dance with a viscount, and he would never know the difference. The temporary freedom was intoxicating, but it came with real consequences when the masks came off and reality returned. The danger was real because feelings developed in these anonymous encounters which didn't disappear when the masks came off. People fell in love with the wrong person. Reputations were ruined when identities were revealed. Hearts were broken when fantasy collided with reality. The masquerade created a bubble where standard rules didn't apply, but that bubble always burst later. Common elements at these balls included loose, hooded domino cloaks and bauda, or half masks. Classical, medieval, or exotic costumes were popular choices. Costumes often symbolized power through kings and gods, innocence through shepherdesses, or mystery through hooded figures. The disguise was part of the thrill because it allowed people to become someone else, even briefly. You could be a pirate, a warrior, a queen, or a character from a fairy tale. For one night, you weren't bound by who you were born to be. The choice to have Sophie dress as Cinderella is perfect because the story mirrors her reality. She's attending a ball she shouldn't be at, wearing a costume that transforms her, and catching the eye of someone far above her station. It's the masquerade itself that creates the magic, and the historical reality of what these events allowed. The costume gives her permission to step into a world she could never normally access, and the mask protects her from immediate discovery. Interestingly, these masquerades masquerades were more than just parties. They were temporary revolutions in which the social order was suspended, and people could experience a freedom they'd never have otherwise. The masks permitted being bold, taking risks, and falling in love with the wrong person. That's what makes them perfect for drama and romance. That's what makes them perfect for Bridgerton. The scandal, the danger, the possibility of being discovered, all of it created an atmosphere where anything felt possible. For servants like Sophie, it was a rare chance to step into a world they'd only ever served. For aristocrats like Benedict, it was a chance to connect with someone honest without the weight of expectations. The anonymity worked both ways, protecting both of them while allowing something genuine to develop. Masquerade balls were eventually tamed as the Victorian era brought stricter moral codes, but during the Regency period, they represented everything exciting and dangerous about the era. They were where rules were broken, where love stories began, and where society's carefully maintained order could crumble for just one night. The costumes we see in Bridgerton aren't just beautiful, they're also historically accurate. They're symbols of rebellion, transformation, the dangerous freedom that comes from hiding true identity, and the beginning of Benedict's love story.